My name is Ryan Lilly. I'm here on staff at the Chamber and Economic Partnership, the CEP in Ocala. We want to thank you all for being on this call today to talk about the Payroll Protection Program, or CARES Act. Also on the call is Kevin Sheely, who is our CEO. Kevin will be coming on when we get to Q&A to help address some of the questions that you might have. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website later this evening. So if you have other contacts who aren't able to be on today, you'll be able to share this out with them. What we want to do first of all today is just kind of give you an overview of the Payroll Protection Program and then talk about the application. Originally, we had planned on really this being about gathering all those documents needed for the application. Although, as you'll see later, the application has been made very, very simple in terms of documentation. So we'll talk about that. All right. So just an overview, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES, was created last week and allocated $350 billion to help small businesses keep workers employed during the pandemic. It is also known as the Payroll Protection Program. So you may hear those two names used interchangeably. They are in fact the same thing, but it provides 100% federally guaranteed loans to small businesses. The Paycheck Protection Program is a loan designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on their payroll. SBA, the Small Business Administration, will be forgiving loans if all employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks, and if the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, or utilities. There is no collateral required, and there's no personal guarantee, and there's no borrower fees either. Forgive me if I'm reading off these slides. I did want to make sure that I get through all this information correctly. But businesses with less than 500 employees can apply. That includes small sole proprietorships, independent contractors, self-employed persons, and nonprofit organizations, including 501c19 veterans organizations. Businesses in certain industries may have more than 500 employees if they meet the SBA size standards for those industries. And if that applies to any of you, please let us know. There's also an exception there for small businesses in the hospitality and food industry with more than one location. They could also be eligible at the store level and the location level if they employ less than 500 workers. All right, so how much can you borrow? Loans can be up to 2.5 times borrower's monthly payroll costs, not to exceed $10 million. Just saw a note here in the chat. Are there slides I can see? Is everyone just making sure? Just give me a thumbs up. Everybody can see my slides? You're on the video? Everybody see the slides? All right. So yeah, if you're joining us by phone, obviously you're not able to see what I'm showing you on the screen, but we'll have that up later. So again, loans can be up to 2.5 times the borrower's average monthly payroll, not to exceed $10 million. So how do you calculate your average monthly payroll cost? You take the sum of the included payroll costs under this program, and we'll talk about what those are, subtract the number of excluded payroll costs, and you arrive at your average monthly payroll. So let's talk about just briefly what's included and what's not. For employers, what's included is the sum of payments of any compensation with respect to employees, that is salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation. Payment of cash tip or equivalent, payment of vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for dismissal or separation, payment required for the provisions of group health care benefits, including insurance premiums, payment of any retirement benefit, and payment of state or local tax assessed on the compensation of the employer. Or on the employee, I'm sorry. For sole proprietors and independent contractors and those who are self-employed, what's included are wages, commissions, income, net earnings from self-employment, or similar compensation that was not more than $100,000 in 1 year, as prorated for the covered period. We'll explain that in just a second. Excluded costs. So these are not included when you do that payroll calculation. Compensation of an individual employee in excess of an annual salary of $100,000, again, as prorated for the period between February 15th and June 30th of 2020. Payroll taxes, railroad retirement taxes, and income taxes. Any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside the U.S., and then qualified sick leave wages, which are for which a credit is allowed under the new Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Family leave wages, which a credit is allowed under the other section of the Act. We did have a webinar yesterday on the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So, you know, from an HR perspective, if you have a question about that, we have that recording up on our website. So when can you apply? And this is one of the reasons that we put this webinar together so quickly. We want everyone to know that starting this Friday, April 3rd, small businesses and sole proprietorships can apply for and receive loans to cover their payroll and other expenses through existing SBA lenders. Those are local credit unions. Getting some feedback here. Let me just mute everybody. All right, we've got everybody muted. Then starting next Friday, April 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply for and receive loans for their payroll and other expenses. So obviously, the idea here is that those with employees are given priority and able to get in this Friday. The Paycheck Protection Program will be available through June 30th of 2020. Obviously, though, most of you are going to want to get your applications in right away. So how to apply? You can apply for this loan through any existing SBA lender, 7A lender, or through any federally insured deposit institution, federally insured credit union, or farm credit system. Other regulated lenders may come on board later, but just consult with your bank or credit union to see if they're offering this. In Ocala, we have already heard from this list of banks that I've got up on the screen. Just again, for those of you who can't see my screen, Ameris Bank, Bank of America, Campus USA Credit Union, Center State, Chase Bank, which by the way has their application online. If you are a Chase business customer prior to February 15th, you can actually do this completely online. Citizens First, Columbia, First Federal, Florida Credit Union, Main Street Bank, Regions, Renaissance, TD Bank, Truist, for those of you who might not familiar, that's the new, came from the new merger of BB&T and SunTrust, and Wells Fargo. An asterisk by their name means that they are focusing on accepting applications from their current customers first. And more banks are likely participating here locally in Ocala than the ones we have on this list. These are just the ones that have reached out to us so far.
Ryan, if I could, just one thing on that. You mentioned Chase is doing theirs online. I would expect most banks will probably be doing some sort of online, if not completely online as well. Because the application ended up being so lean and simple, I think there's going to be a huge push to go ahead and take all of those online, especially now that we are under, starting midnight tomorrow night, a shelter-in-place order. So look for that to all be an online automated process.
Great. And we'll update this list also on our COVID-19 site, which I'll show you in just a little bit. Details on loan forgiveness. So the loan will be fully forgiven if the loan funds are used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. At least 75% of the forgiven amount must have been used for payroll. Loan payments will also be deferred for 6 months. As we mentioned earlier, there's no collateral, no personal guarantees. Neither the government nor lenders will charge small businesses any fees. We've gotten notes from a few people that they've been reached out to by accountants and attorneys who are wanting to file these loan applications on their behalf. They, should be taking, their portion from the lender fees. There shouldn't be anything that you have to pay on that. Forgiveness is based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salary levels. Forgiveness of the loan will be reduced if full-time headcount declines or salaries and wages decrease. I'll explain that more on the next slide. This loan has a maturity date of 2 years and an interest rate of 0.5%. That is different from what some of you may have seen a few days ago or last week. Initially, they said it was going to be a 4% interest rate, but it is now just 0.5%. If you wish to begin preparing your application, you can download a sample form, which I'll show you here in a little while, actually see what information is going to be requested of you. So going back to this question of how could the forgiveness of the loan be reduced? In other words, how could you not have to, how might you not have to pay all this back? The amount of the loan forgiveness calculated earlier is reduced if there is a reduction in the number of employees or a reduction of greater than 25% in what is paid to employees. Down here at the bottom, you can see how to calculate that. If you can see my cursor, if you reduce the number of employees, you take your payroll cost, multiply it by the average number of full-time equivalent employees for the 8 weeks beginning on the loan application, and divide it by either the average number of full-time employees per month during that period, February 15th to June 30th.
It's going in and out.
It's going in and out. Okay. Sorry. Let me, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So that information is here. You also have, if you've reduced your payroll, just take that average monthly payroll cost and subtract for any employee who did not earn during that pay period in 2019 wages at an annualized rate of more than $100,000. So what if you bring back your employees or restore wages? Reductions in employment or wages that occur during the period beginning February 15th and ending 30 days after enactment of the CARES Act as compared to February 15th shall not reduce the amount of loan forgiveness if by June 30th the borrower eliminates the reduction in employees or the reduction in wages. In other words, an easier way of saying that is to not have your forgiveness reduced. You have until June 30th to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th. So an example that Kevin put together earlier, say the company has 25 employees but has laid off 15 workers on March 1st. At the time of the application and approval, they have 10 employees. For the loan to be forgiven, they must have 25 employees again at the same wage levels by June 30th. Hopefully that example makes it a little easier for you. All of this information on these slides is coming from these two documents that I have up here on the screen. These will also be posted on our website. The one on the left is a really nice, easy guide that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce created. The one on the right is actually from the Small Business Administration. It's a sheet with information for borrowers. All right. And again, in terms of documentation, very easy. In addition to the application, you basically have to prove your payroll. So up here on the screen is the top portion, you can't see all of it there, of IRS Form 941, which is your employer's quarterly federal income tax, federal tax return. So that would be the kind of documentation that they would be looking for to basically prove your payroll. If you have a payroll system like Paychex, you may also be able to generate a payroll summary report with that. But again, I think the IRS Form 941 should be what you plan on having ready. All right. We did also get word this morning that some banks who are, obviously banks are going to be with a lot of applications. If you approach a bank who you're not currently a customer with, they may require that you have a personal financial statement. This is SBA Form 413. If you, we'll again put this on our website, but if you Google SBA Form 413, you can fill out a personal financial statement. All right, so with that, I'm going to close out of this and I'm going to pull up the actual application. Kevin, can you give me a thumbs up? You can see the application there? Okay. This is the application. It is one of the most simple loan applications you will ever see. You know, at the top here, you're selecting, are you a nonprofit? Are you self-employed, veterans organization, what have you? Your business name, if you have a DBA, business address, your tax identification number or your employer identification number, or in the case of a proprietor, your social security number. Got your business phone, email, contact info, and then here you're inputting your monthly payroll. Multiply that by 2.5 times, and that's your loan amount that you're requesting. Enter that right there, and then the number of jobs. You can select more than one purpose for the loan. So we've got payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, utilities, and other. You can select as many of these as is applicable. Then you have your ownership information. If you have more than 2 owners in the business that have a greater than 20% stake, you can just attach those additional owners to the application. Down here, you're just certifying that you're not currently in bankruptcy, that you've never defaulted on an SBA loan, those kind of sort of qualifying questions. You're not currently on probation or parole. And then on the second page here, you're again certifying that, you know, the reason that you're getting this loan, it is because of the economic uncertainty that you're going after this loan. This isn't meant, you know, again, for businesses purchasing new equipment or doing expansions or anything like that. It is for payroll and mortgage interest and all those other things we talked about. So basically you just initial next to each of those, sign it and take it to your bank. Let's see, a bunch of disclosures here at the bottom, and then that's it. That's essentially, it's 4 pages, but there's basically 2 pages there that you are filling out. So with that, let me make sure I unmute Kevin. Let's see, unmute. There we go. And what we'll do is, because we have so many people on the call, we do have 100 people on the call right now. We would ask, first of all, if you would submit your questions through the chat box. Just scroll up to the top of the screen and then select chat, or you might see it at the bottom of your screen actually. And we'll start taking questions. Kevin, is there anything that I missed before we go to the chat questions here?
No, I think you did a good job of covering everything. Really key note, or a couple of things for you all to think about. This is, and Ryan said it, this is the simplest, leanest application I've ever seen. There are no, unless you're going to potentially to a lender who you don't have a current relationship with, there are no financials that you're submitting with this. There's no tax returns that you're submitting with this. It is basically this application, and you're going to need your 941s on the payroll portion, but it is a very lean application. I would argue that while some businesses have greater need than others, and I want them to make sure that they're applying, every business has been negatively impacted in this environment. And so we would encourage every business to look at this and to apply. And I think with that,
Kevin, we can go to questions, and if you like, I can kind of read off the questions here and then maybe have you respond.
Sure.
What is the effect of forgiveness of the loan if an employee is laid off after June 30th, 2020?
Yeah. So what you're going to look at is not the individual employee, but you're going to be looking at headcount and wages. So if you have 25 employees, it doesn't mean that it's the same 25 people. It's looking that you have 25 slots and that you have wages that correspond with those. And again, remember those numbers. I think this is a really important item, and maybe to go to some of the questions. The loan forgiveness piece is around the payroll, the rent, mortgage, utilities, really with emphasis on payroll. If you spend the funds, you have other costs that you need to do to keep your doors open, to maintain. You bring your, obviously, number one issue is concerned about bringing employees back. But if you're not getting the loan forgiveness, this converts to, or it continues as a regular loan. You're not making payments for 6 months. There's a 2-year term on it at 0.5%. And so that's another really good, I mean, that by itself, you throw the loan forgiveness piece out, a 0.5% loan is pretty close to free money. And so that's one of the really attractive pieces with that.
Kevin, the next question is, how do you complete owner information as a nonprofit? Can an employer keep an independent contractor and include them in their payroll calculations?
Okay. On the how do you complete it as a nonprofit, when you're filling out, as you fill out nonprofit on the application and you put the legal name and your address, they will then know that there's not, I mean, no one's going to have any ownership of that. Some institutions may ask you to include information later about your board chair and some of that information, but on that piece, I would leave that blank unless your bank specifically asks you to fill something in. But as a nonprofit, you have no ownership. And Ryan, go ahead.
The second question there was, can an employer keep an independent contractor and include them in their payroll calculations?
So my understanding is that an independent contractor, W-2 wages can be included with that. W-9 wages can be included in figuring out your payroll costs. That's one of the things we'll get verification on and put on the website, but I'm fairly certain that's one of the items that I've read.
Next question from Bill is, does the owner's W-2 wages also count towards the total payroll?
It does. Again, only up to $100,000. Anything in excess of the $100,000 is not included in that amount.
Question from Miriam, does the average monthly payroll include full-time equivalents and temporary employees? For money and headcount, if inclusive of temps, what documentation or proof is recommended?
Yeah, so if you have, and there was a lot of question there, and I don't know that I caught all of it, but if you have leased employees, so temporaries, those kind of things, they're employees actually of the staffing agency or from whomever you got that. You're getting those employees. So they are on their payroll, not on yours. So you're focused on people who are employees of your organization. Did I get all that one, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that covers that one. For a single member LLC taxed as an S Corp and running payroll on yourself, would you check the box as a self-employed, as independent contractor, or none of those?
Yeah, no answer for that question. We'll do some research and we'll try to post that back on our website.
Next question is, can you include part-time employees?
Absolutely.
Is there other programs that I can apply for because I'm not a U.S. citizen?
I am not aware of any stimulus-related programs that are available to resident aliens or other non-citizens.
How do we answer all the questions if we are a nonprofit organization? We have no owners to list. I think you covered that one a little while ago, Kevin. Capital City Bank told me to wait for further notice and bring an entire package with proof of documentation. Are you saying I don't need anything but a 941 on the payroll portion, no IRS?
So again, you will have to follow what each individual bank is going to do. The guidelines and the impetus from Treasury and the SBA is to keep it really simple. In particular, I just throw this out here again, Florida just went under, starting midnight tomorrow night, a shelter in place. So you're not going to be taking your package anywhere. You're going to be looking at how you're submitting online. And again, individual banks may request some additional information.
The next question here from Beth is, if a business is a corporation, is there no box to check at the top of the application? That's a great point, Beth. I don't see one up there just for a regular corporation. So
and maybe that's just assumed if it's not checked.
Yeah. Let's see. Not heard of any reason to require a personal financial statement form completed. So yeah, we had just heard that from actually from the local Small Business Development Center office this morning, that a few of their banks that had reached out to them had said they were requiring a personal financial statement if the applicant was not an existing customer. But again, it may not be required. Question from Kelly, is this for LLC companies? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is, Kelly. Question from Mary, I heard that you can add health insurance premiums to the total payroll for the loan amount, but is it only the payroll amount, salary, not benefits?
You absolutely. Ryan had a slide earlier in the presentation about all the pieces that contribute to the figuring the payroll portion, and your health insurance premiums is one of those allowable items.
Person just clarifying here, they say the head count of employees must remain the same until June 30th, 2020 for the loan to be fully forgiven.
Correct.
That's correct. Question from Colette. Can you also apply for other disaster loans like the SBA disaster loan and the Florida COVID-19 bridge loan?
So you can apply for the bridge loan. You can have both of those in conjunction. It is an either or on the SBA economic injury disaster loan or this loan. It's not both. I would strongly encourage you to talk to your accountant or your banker to determine which is the best route for you.
We've got a comment here from Tim who says he's heard the application form is going to change. I don't think we've heard that, have we, Kevin?
I haven't. Again, this is all moving timeline really quickly for those of you, and also a reason to give your banks a lot of grace right now. The Congress and the President passed and signed this into law last Friday. SBA under statute had 30 days to write the rules. This is basically something new and different. They're working over an existing program, but it's really new. I think every banker, everyone I know in the industry throughout the country with whom I spoke, really didn't expect to see those guidelines until, at best, Friday the 10th, another week and a half away. And we all kind of worked together on what type of documents we would want. I think we were all a little surprised, not a little, we were all a lot of surprised when the SBA issued those guidelines last night in the application process. So banks are changing. It's also very different than what it was originally proposed as. So banks are working very, very hard to be ready to take your applications. The application period opens on Friday. Please don't be surprised if your bank isn't quite ready yet and they ask you to wait until Monday, or they have an online portal and they say, hey, go ahead and start submitting, but we may not be able to start moving these through until later in the week, because they are moving very, very quickly. They haven't had a lot of time. Again, it didn't get passed until Friday. Guidelines came out on Tuesday. Applications technically can start going in Friday. So have a little patience with your banks as they're trying to get prepared for this.
Next question, Kevin, is we have employees that have opted to stay home without pay, but others that have had their hours increased to make up for those hours. We will allow them back when they feel safe, but overall the payroll hours have stayed consistent. Is this okay?
Carly, I'm going to encourage you to run that by your bank. My gut is yes, because it's going to meet the requirements, but you'll want to make sure with your banker on that piece.
Can two different companies, completely separate employer identification numbers, but they have common ownership, can they both apply separately? Also, if a company already has an active SBA loan, are they still eligible? The second part of that we kind of addressed, but the first part, Kevin?
If they have an active SBA loan separate from, if they had a current 504 or some other loan, yes, they can apply. Those aren't in competition with one another. I believe if they're different companies and they have different EINs, they should be able to both be able to apply. Yep. Again, talk to your banker, but I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, they are, from all intents and purposes, separate companies.
Are the payroll reports from 2020 or 2019 for the documentation or number amount?
I'm not exactly sure. If this question is in regard to how do you figure your payroll piece, to kind of work on how much you're eligible for, I think most of the guidance is talked about look at 2019. What was your average monthly payroll in 2019 with all the included items that we've discussed?
Question from Monica. Can we apply if we are using a payroll leasing company? All of the employees only work for us, but they head our payroll services.
So it's going to depend on who's listed as their employer. If their employer is actually the leasing company, then the leasing company is the one who would need to apply. If the employees are considered your employees, then you can apply for them. But my guess is the way that's written that they're probably not eligible.
Kevin, a question from Tom. Missed the response to what does the number of jobs mean on the application? Is it full-time equivalent? Is it average number of employees?
And so that's one of the really interesting things because it's not exactly spelled out on the application. It just asks number of jobs. In the forgiveness piece, it is about full-time equivalent. It specifically states FTE. I would suggest that you, I think for consistency, to make the only way that's going to work is if you're able to stick with FTE on both, and you should be able to pull it roughly that way from your payroll reports as well. But it doesn't specifically say on the application, but on the forgiveness piece, it specifically outlines FTE.
Next question: Can independent contractors that are on a 1099 be included in your total payroll count, or only W-2?
A 1099 independent contractor can be able to apply for themselves. That's one of the options on our application. So as I understand, they would not count towards your payroll, but we'll get that verified. But I'm fairly certain that's why they have their own category on here.
And just answer the next question: Can an independent contractor trucker, can I apply? And again,
yes.
If there's an independent contractor, you can.
Yes, but your application is not available till you can't submit until next Friday the 10th.
If a business has other funds available to make the specific expenses payments, how to document the use of payroll protection program funds to cover those costs? Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah, so I don't think they're looking for, I got this dollar and I put that same dollar and went out. I think they're going to show that if you got $50,000, that you had $50,000 in payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utility expenses, and that 75% of that was related to payroll.
How many hours is considered full-time equivalent? Is it 30 or 40?
Don't have the answer to that question, but we'll see if we can find that, and we'll post it on the website.
Those are all the questions I see in the chat, unless anybody else wants to.
And lots of really good questions. And I think one of the things that's really key, oh, there's another new question.
It's more of a comment. It says, can you guys get any more awesome?
Probably not. Unless you ask her wise, and then they will tell you that we need to work on it. This is a, and we'll get to that one too. Hey, know this, we keep talking about businesses. For our nonprofit friends who are listening, you are a business, you're a nonprofit business. If you're a 501c3, which is most, everything we would consider a charitable endeavor is a 501c3, you can apply, and we'd really encourage you to do so. I know Lauren DiOrio, I heard her earlier, is on the call from the Community Foundation. They are your resource. Everything we have available is there. You can take advantage of those on our getgathergo.com website, and you can find all of those resources, but also reach out to Community Foundation. They're doing a lot to make sure that our nonprofits can take full advantage of this program.
Kevin, real quick before we get to the next few questions, we had a local loan program created.
Yes.
We really think that this new payroll protection program is even better. Can you just talk a little bit about, for anybody on the call that may have heard about or applied towards that local loan program, why this is so much better for them?
Absolutely. The local loan program, we are so appreciative of the Marion County Board of County Commissioners and the City of Ocala for each agreeing to contribute $250,000 to create a local loan fund to help small businesses. We worked very diligently to work with both of those groups to put this together to be able to assist. What has worked out is we were trying to move quickly because generally these types of programs from the federal government take a really long time to create, really long and tedious applications, and an even longer time to push dollars out. And that's where we're hoping to be able to fill that gap. Instead, what the government has done now is they've given us a program that should move incredibly quickly. It's very lean, and this is a much better route. The loan that we were going to offer would be capped at $25,000 and have a 2.5% interest rate. Instead, you can now apply for a loan with 0.5% interest rate, and it can be forgiven. That's a much better deal. We thought it'd be better to partner with our businesses those who had interest to really get them into this program. And then what we've asked the city and the county to do is let's execute our agreements, but we're not going to look to pull down any funds. Hopefully this doesn't go on forever, but when we get in another month or two, if we need to, we can then activate that program. Ryan's now gone to a website that I'm really excited about off the CEP page. It's a list of, I think, about 30 businesses who are hiring today. So if you know people who have been dislocated, who are looking for jobs, these are 30 businesses who are currently hiring. And so please know that's available. It's at ocalacep.com under About Ocala, and you can see job openings there. And that's a great resource. Ryan, I think we had a few other questions, didn't we?
We do, yes. Next question is, I'm a single owner business that does not take a paycheck. Can I apply?
I don't know how you would figure out what you're eligible for, because it's based on payroll. So if you're not drawing a paycheck, if there's no payroll, then there's nothing to figure a loan amount on. Talk to your bank, but I'm not quite sure how to be able to calculate that.
Question from Maria. So if I understand correctly, the expenses like rent, utilities, etc., will not be forgiven.
Oh, no, incorrect. Rent or mortgage interest and utilities are expenses for which can be forgiven. So they want most of it to go to payroll, but those are absolutely expenses that count towards that forgiveness piece.
Next question from Gene. What is the website to find out about updates or changes? Our website, Gene, is ocalacep.com. And then up here at the top right, it says COVID-19 updates. You can click on that. And we're updating this page several times a day. Everything that we're talking about is linked right there at the very top. CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program. Click right on that, and you'll see all the updates there. Some Q&A, or frequently asked questions, the loan application itself, which we were talking about earlier, you can get to right from there. Yeah, Jessica also commented, a new website we have is getgathergo.com, and that'll take you right here as well.
With that, Get Gather Go, we want you all to get informed, we want you to gather your information, and we want you to be ready to go apply.
Question from Mary. If you've already applied for the SBA economic injury loan, therefore you can't do the payroll protection program, can you apply for the Ocala loan program you were just talking about?
We have, for right now, put a hold on the local loan program to allow us to really push this. Know that if you've already, just because you've applied for the economic injury disaster loan, if you haven't been funded, and I don't know that anyone's been funded yet, you can apply. You just withdraw that application and you can apply for the paycheck protection program. And you, again, we'd encourage you to talk to your accountant or talk to your banker to figure out which is the best option for you.
Next question. If I follow payroll guidelines but also pay electric out of payroll protection funds, will my total loan be forgiven at the end?
Again, those are both eligible items. They're going to look at, and I'll use the example, if you get a $50,000 loan, if you're able to demonstrate that you spent $50,000 over that 8-week period on related payroll costs, utilities, rent, mortgage interest, and that 75% of that was for payroll related piece, then yes, your loan can be forgiven. There's some documents you submit to the to your work with your lender on, and then they'll be the ones who will verify those pieces. But yes, just because you spend it on utilities or mortgage interest or rent, those are allowable expenses for forgiveness.
Next question here. I'm sorry, I'm coming in late. Does the application go to our bank, or are there particular banks that are doing the loan? Again, we've brought up the list here of the banks locally here in Ocala who have notified us that they are participating. Just because they're not on this list, we'd still recommend that you check with whoever you do your banking with currently to see if they're participating. Next question, Kevin. I may have missed this, but does this interfere with the employee retention credit at all?
And that's a great question, Joel. I don't think it, I have to go back and look. We'll post that on there. It may be that you can only do one or the other, but I've got to go back and take a look at that one. In fact,
Okay.
actually, the more I think about it, I'm fairly certain it's either or.
Question from Maria. How soon do you think the money will be given if your loan is approved?
Well, that'll depend. So it goes to your bank, your bank will do their processing piece, and then it goes to SBA, and it depends on how quickly SBA signs off. I think because the funds are all going to move electronically, once you're approved, I think you're talking about a matter of days until the funds are in your account. It's really on these first ones. Again, be really patient with your banks. They're doing everything they can. These rules are getting made up for them just like they are for the rest of us. But the goal of the program, I think the reason that our federal government has pushed this out so quickly is to get money as quickly as possible out to businesses.
Question about what would be included in utilities. Does this mean electric, phone, et cetera? My understanding, Kevin, is that electric is included, but phone is not, correct?
Yeah, I think they're thinking electric, water, sewer, gas, and it may include, I don't know about phone, but I don't know about telecom fiber piece, but your more traditional utilities, absolutely.
Ending payroll protection program date is June 30th, question mark. Should I make my loan application for $50,000? The ending date by which your application needs to be in is June 30th. And again, that loan application amount really depends on what your payroll is. Did you say that's right, Kevin?
Yes, correct.
How does this work for leased employees? Did we talk about that earlier, Kevin?
We've covered that one. They're not your employees, they're employees of the staffing company.
All right. So if you just came in and you're wondering about leased employees, you'll be able to watch, go back and watch later and find that information. Which documents need to be provided to prove your rent, utilities, health insurance premium, and retirement expenses?
Sure. And so those are going to be on the backside. When you're going for forgiveness, you'll be working directly with your lender on that. And my guess is they're probably going to have some different standards. Again, rent, utilities, I think your bill will be a good example. That's probably what they're going to see. Insurance premium, retirement expenses. You're going to have some type of statement in relation to those. You're going to need to show your payroll as a piece of that. So however you generate those reports, there's a number of different ways. Banks will probably get additional guidance on what documents they need. But again, that's something you're going to work on the backside at the end of the program for that forgiveness.
So you don't need any of those things to start your application?
As we understand, you shouldn't at this point.
Someone asked, does lease employees mean under a PEO?
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that question.
Retirement expenses, so 401k can be included?
That's my understanding, yes. The employer contribution piece.
Monica said, I just spoke to my leasing company and they said we are still eligible. Will the banks have this definitive answer?
Absolutely. And again, this is all moving really quickly. The initial set of rules that everyone thought we were going to have, literally when we started getting things late yesterday, were very different. In particular on the leasing question, we will post this afternoon to getgathergo.com with a final answer on that piece. Our original guidance was that they would not, but again, that could very well have changed.
All right. Any other questions? Just enter them there in the chat box. We do have some people joining us by phone who can't see the chat. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question if you like. Give you just another few seconds here. Again, we will be posting this recording online later today, and you'll be able to share it out with everybody. And with that, it doesn't look like we have any more questions.
Before everyone gets off, I just want to share out, thank you so much for being a part today. It's really important to us at the CEP that as many businesses in our community as possible apply for these funds. We know they're important, that everyone needs this. We want to see these dollars come into our community to help our businesses and to help our people who live here. So we really encourage you, as you know other businesses, please have them go to watch this recording, to get the information, to get the application, and to be ready when their applications go live. And for our nonprofits, that includes you too. So make sure you're taking full advantage. Reach out to the Community Foundation for additional information.
And again, Kevin, I just want to show everybody our website here, ocalacep.com, COVID-19 updates on the top right. And then you're able to click right here at the very top, CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program, and we'll keep this updated here with any updates that we have. All right, thank you all so much for being on the call today. Please also check out the other webinars we have this week. In fact, we have one at 3:30 here in less than an hour with Faithfully Guided Health Center talking about physical and mental wellness amid COVID-19. So that information is on our page if you'd like to check it out.